The stars had always called to Ren Blackwood. Ever since he could remember, he'd spend hours on the roof of his foster home, telescope pointed skyward, searching for something he couldn't quite name. Tonight was different. Tonight, the stars were falling. Ren adjusted his telescope, focusing on the unusual light patterns streaking across the Nevada sky. At 17, he'd become something of an expert on celestial phenomena, earning a reputation at Desert Springs High as the resident space geek. But these lights, they moved with purpose, against the wind, defying natural laws. "This isn't a meteor shower," he muttered, reaching for his phone to record the anomaly. The device wasn't in his pocket. He'd left it charging downstairs, a rare oversight that would prove fateful. The first ship appeared without warning, materializing through what seemed like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. It was massive, easily the size of a small city, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence that shifted colors like oil on water. Smaller vessels emerged behind it, arranging themselves in a perfect geometric formation that no human fleet could achieve. Ren's hands trembled as he adjusted the telescope's focus. This was it, the moment humanity had speculated about for centuries. First contact. And he was watching it happen from his foster parents' roof in the middle of nowhere, Nevada. A low hum filled the air, more felt than heard, vibrating through his bones. The massive ship descended slowly, its approach causing car alarms to blare across the sleeping town. Ren knew he should run, hide, do anything except stand there staring. But he couldn't move, transfixed by the sight above him. The ship stopped its descent about a mile above the ground, hovering with impossible stillness. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot down from its underside, scanning the terrain in systematic patterns. Ren watched as it moved closer to his location, his heart pounding against his ribs. The beam passed over his house, and for a split second, everything stopped. The light changed color, from white to a deep purple, and Ren felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. The medallion he always wore, the only thing he had from his birth parents, grew warm against his chest. Then the world dissolved around him. When reality reassembled itself, Ren found himself standing in a vast chamber that seemed to defy physics. The walls curved impossibly, made of some material that shifted and flowed like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. The air was different here, thicker, with an odd metallic taste. Before him stood a being that could only be described as regal. Tall and humanoid, but clearly not human, with skin that seemed to shimmer with its own internal light. Its eyes were the most striking feature, completely black except for pinpoints of white light that seemed to pulse with thought. At last, the being spoke, its voice resonating with harmonics that made Ren's spine tingle. "After 17 cycles of searching, we found you." Ren took a step back, his mind reeling. What are you?" The being's expression shifted in a way that might have been a smile. "I am Supreme Commander Vaxon of the Stellaris Federation. And you, Ren Blackwood, are my son." The words hit Ren like a physical blow. He grabbed his medallion instinctively, the metal now burning hot against his palm. "That's impossible. My parents died when I was a baby." "There were records." "False records," Vaxon said softly, his eyes fixed on the medallion. "Created to protect you. That symbol you wear, it's the crest of the House of Vaxon, my bloodline. Your mother was human, yes, but I am your father." Ren's world tilted on its axis. The medallion he'd worn his entire life, the one thing that connected him to his past, suddenly held new meaning. But before he could process this revelation, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Vaxon's expression hardened as he turned to look at a holographic display that materialized beside him. "They've followed us," he growled. "The Shadowbound have tracked our quantum signature." "The who?" Ren asked, struggling to keep up with the rapid shifts in his reality. "The ones who forced us to hide you on Earth in the first place," Vaxon explained quickly, moving to another console. A faction that believes mixing human and Stellaris blood will bring about the collapse of our civilization. They've spent 17 years hunting for you. The ship shuddered, and Ren stumbled, catching himself against a wall that felt warm and almost alive under his touch. Why me? What makes me so important? Vaxen's eyes locked onto his, those points of light burning with intensity. Because, my son, you are unique in all the galaxy. The first successful hybrid of our species, carrying both human adaptability and Stellaris power. You represent everything they fear, and everything we need to survive. Another impact rocked the ship, and Ren could hear the distant sound of what might have been explosions. Vaxen moved swiftly, pressing a series of symbols on various consoles. We don't have much time. The choice before you is simple but brutal: stay on Earth and live in ignorance, hoping they never find you again, or come with me and learn who you truly are. Ren looked down at his medallion, then back up at the being who claimed to be his father. His entire life had been spent searching the stars, feeling like he didn't quite belong anywhere. Now he knew why. Those people down there, he said, thinking of his foster family, will they be safe? The Shadowbound only want you, Vaxen assured him. Once we leave, they'll have no reason to harm Earth or its people. Ren took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision. Everything he knew, everything he was, balanced against everything he could be. The stars had always called to him. Maybe now he knew why. All right, he said, squaring his shoulders. I'll come with you. Vaxen's expression softened slightly, but before he could respond, the chamber filled with red light. Warning signals flashed across every surface, and the ship lurched violently. Breach in Sector 7, a voice announced in a language Ren somehow understood despite never having heard it before. Shadowbound boarding parties detected. Vaxen grabbed Ren's arm, pulling him toward a doorway that appeared in the seemingly solid wall. Time to run, son. Your first lesson in being a child of two worlds: sometimes survival means fighting, and sometimes it means knowing when to retreat. As they raced through the impossible corridors of the alien ship, Ren realized his life would never be the same. The stars had finally answered his lifelong search, but their answer had only led to more questions. Questions he'd have to survive to answer. The corridors of the massive starship twisted and turned like a living labyrinth. Ren struggled to keep pace with Vaxen, his legs burning as they sprinted through passages that seemed to reform themselves as they ran. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew closer, energy weapons discharging, metal screaming against metal, and voices shouting in languages that made Ren's head spin. Here, Vaxen said suddenly, pressing his palm against a section of wall that looked identical to every other surface they'd passed. A doorway materialized, and they ducked inside what appeared to be a command center. Holographic displays filled the air around them, showing the ship's status in intricate, flowing symbols. We need to reach the quantum core, Vaxen explained, his fingers dancing across various control surfaces. But first, you need to understand what you are. What you can do. Ren caught his breath, leaning against a console that hummed with energy. What I can do? I'm nobody. A foster kid who likes astronomy. Vaxen's expression softened slightly. Look at your medallion. Really look at it. Ren pulled the ancient pendant from beneath his shirt. He'd always assumed the intricate patterns were just decorative, but now they seemed to shift and move under his gaze. The metal felt warm, alive almost, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. That medallion is a key, Vaxen said, moving closer. Not just a symbol of our bloodline, but a tool. A focus for abilities that have lain dormant in your DNA since birth. Your mother. He paused, emotion flickering across his alien features. She knew the risks of bearing a hybrid child, but she believed it was necessary. The universe needed a bridge between our peoples. My mother, Ren whispered. What was she like? Brilliant. Fierce. She was a xenoarchaeologist, studying the ruins of ancient civilizations across the galaxy. That's how we met. She understood things about the universe that even my people, with all our advanced technology, had missed. She saw patterns where we saw chaos. Another explosion rocked the ship, closer this time. Vaxen's expression hardened. We don't have much time. The medallion, hold it and focus. Feel the energy within it. Your human DNA gives you adaptability, creativity, traits my people lost eons ago. But your Stellaris heritage gives you access to quantum manipulation. Quantum what? Ren asked, but even as he spoke, he felt something stirring within him. The medallion grew warmer, and suddenly the symbols engraved on its surface began to glow with an inner light. Every particle in the universe exists in multiple states simultaneously, Vaxen explained quickly. My people learned to manipulate these quantum states, to bend reality itself. But we became rigid, predictable. The power began to fade. You, with your human adaptability, might be able to use it in ways we never imagined. Ren stared at the glowing medallion, feeling a strange sensation building in his chest. It was like electricity running through his veins, but instead of pain, he felt possibility. As if reality itself had become fluid, malleable. Focus on the medallion, Vaxen instructed. Feel the connection between its quantum state and yours. Then. The door exploded inward. Through the smoke stepped three figures that made Ren's blood run cold. They were tall, like Vaxen, but wrong somehow. Their forms seemed to shift and waver, as if they couldn't quite decide which reality to exist in. The abomination, one of them hissed, its voice like static on a radio. End it now, before it learns to use the power. Vaxen stepped in front of Ren, his hands glowing with energy. You're too late. The boy already knows what he is. What he is a mistake, another shadowbound snarled. The mixing of bloodlines will destroy everything. The quantum fabric cannot sustain such chaos. Ren felt something snap inside him. The medallion burned white-hot against his chest, and suddenly he could see it, the quantum fabric they spoke of. Reality wasn't solid at all, but a tapestry of possibilities, each thread representing a different potential state of existence. Without thinking, he reached out and grabbed one of those threads. The world shifted. The Shadowbound's weapons, previously aimed at them, suddenly appeared 20 feet to the left, embedded in the wall. The attackers stumbled, disoriented by the sudden change in reality. Impossible, one of them whispered. No hybrid should have this level of control. Vaxen didn't waste the opportunity. Energy burst from his hands, catching two of the Shadowbound in a web of quantum disruption. They screamed as their forms began to unravel, their unstable quantum states collapsing. The third attacker lunged at Ren, but he instinctively pulled another quantum thread. Space folded around them, and suddenly the Shadowbound was attacking empty air, while Ren stood behind it. The power, Ren gasped, struggling to understand what he'd just done. It's like rewriting reality's source code. A human analogy, Vaxen said with what might have been pride. But accurate. You see the quantum fabric as information, patterns that can be manipulated. Just like your mother did. The ship shuddered again, and new alarms began to sound. Vaxen's expression turned grim. More shadowbound vessels approaching. We need to reach the quantum core now. Can you do that again? Can you help us get there? Ren looked down at his medallion, still glowing with inner light. The power hummed through him, frightening but exhilarating. He could see the quantum threads all around them, waiting to be rewoven. I think so, he said. But I don't know how to control it properly. What if I make a mistake? Trust your instincts, Vaxen said. Your human creativity combined with Stellaris power, you can do things neither of our species could do alone. That's why they fear you. That's why you're so important. Ren took a deep breath, feeling the weight of both his heritages. He was no longer just a foster kid staring at the stars. He was something new, something unique in the universe. And right now, that universe needed him to embrace that uniqueness. Okay, he said, gripping the medallion tightly. Let's rewrite some reality. Reality warped and twisted around Ren as he pulled at the quantum threads, trying to create a safe path to the ship's quantum core. Each manipulation felt like playing a musical instrument he'd never seen before, familiar enough to produce sound, but far from mastering the melody. The core chamber is 3 levels down, Vaxon said, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. But the Shadowbound will have it heavily guarded. They know it's our only escape route. Ren nodded, sweat beading on his forehead as he maintained their quantum shield, a bubble of altered probability that made them harder to detect. Why can't we just? I don't know, teleport there. If we can manipulate reality. Quantum manipulation has rules, Vaxon explained as they moved through the corridors. Break too many at once, and reality snaps back like a rubber band. The results can be catastrophic. As if to emphasize his point, they passed a section of the ship where reality had fractured. The walls rippled like water, and Ren could see glimpses of other timelines bleeding through, versions of the ship where the attack never happened, where he never existed, where Earth had fallen to invasion centuries ago. The Shadowbound, Ren said, forcing himself to look away from the fractures, they're like you, aren't they? Stellaris? But different somehow. Vaxon's expression darkened. They were once our people, yes. But they became obsessed with purity, with maintaining absolute control over quantum states. They began to modify themselves, trying to exist in multiple realities at once. It drove them mad. They reached a central junction where multiple corridors intersected. Ren could feel quantum disturbances ahead, the Shadowbound were close. But something else caught his attention. The medallion around his neck was pulling him toward a different path. Wait, he said, grabbing Vaxon's arm. There's something. I can feel something calling to me. Vaxon hesitated, checking the ship's status on a nearby console. We don't have time for detours. The ship's quantum containment is failing. If we don't reach the core soon. Trust me, Ren interrupted, surprising himself with his certainty. This is important. I don't know how I know, but I do. After a moment's consideration, Vaxon nodded. Your human intuition. Sometimes it sees patterns we miss. Lead the way. Ren followed the medallion's pull, using his newfound abilities to bend probability around them, making their passage safer. The feeling grew stronger as they approached what appeared to be a sealed chamber. This is a quantum vault, Vaxon said, his voice tinged with surprise. But it shouldn't be here. This section of the ship. Before he could finish, Ren's medallion flared with light. The vault's door responded, complex patterns of energy flowing across its surface. With a soft hiss, it opened. Inside, suspended in a field of shifting energy, was another medallion, identical to Ren's but darker, as if burned by some ancient fire. Your mother's medallion, Vaxon breathed. We thought it was lost when. He trailed off, emotion choking his words. Ren stepped forward, drawn to the artifact. As he approached, both medallions began to resonate, creating harmonics that made the quantum fabric around them vibrate. She left this for me, Ren realized. She knew I'd need it someday. A hologram flickered to life, a woman with kind eyes and a determined expression. Ren's heart skipped a beat. His mother. Ren, the hologram said, its voice filled with both love and urgency. If you're seeing this, then you've discovered who you are. The medallions are a paired set, one for each half of your heritage. Together, they'll help you control your abilities, keep you from losing yourself in the quantum flux. The image flickered, damaged by time or quantum interference. There's so much I wanted to teach you, so much you need to know. But time is our enemy. Remember this, your power comes from both sides of your heritage. The Stellaris taught us how to see the quantum fabric, but humanity showed them how to weave it into something new. You are not a mistake. You are the bridge we've been waiting for. The hologram faded, leaving Ren holding both medallions, feeling the power pulse between them like a heartbeat. A slow clap echoed through the chamber. Ren and Vaxen spun to find a figure standing in the doorway, a shadowbound, but different from the others. Its form was more stable, wrapped in armor that seemed to drink in light. How touching, it said, its voice like breaking glass. The family reunion we've been waiting for. Nexus, Vaxen growled, stepping forward. I should have known you'd lead this hunt personally. The shadowbound commander spread its arms. Did you think we wouldn't notice when you finally found the boy? When you activated the quantum beacon in his medallion? Its gaze fixed on Ren. Such potential, wasted on a hybrid. The quantum fabric was never meant to be manipulated by primitive human consciousness. Ren felt anger surge through him, amplified by the dual medallions. My human consciousness is what lets me do this. He pulled at reality, not just one thread but many, weaving them together in ways that felt instinctive yet impossible. The quantum fabric responded, twisting around Nexus, trying to trap it in a single state of reality. But the shadowbound commander laughed, its form splitting into multiple versions of itself, each one existing in a slightly different quantum state. You think you're the first to try that, boy? We've spent centuries learning to exist in quantum flux. Your parlor tricks can't bind us. Maybe not alone, Vaxen said, his hands glowing with power. But he's not alone anymore. The fight that followed was unlike anything Ren could have imagined. Reality itself became their battlefield, with Nexus shifting between states faster than thought, attacking from multiple timelines at once. Vaxen's experience and Ren's raw power kept them alive, but barely. The ship's core is overloading, Vaxen shouted between attacks. We need to end this now. Ren looked down at the medallions, feeling their power resonate through him. His mother's words echoed in his mind, a bridge between two worlds. Then he understood. Dad, he called out, the word feeling strange but right on his tongue. I need you to trust me. When I say now, drop your quantum defenses completely. Vaxen's eyes met his, and in that moment, something passed between them, a connection deeper than blood or quantum physics. He nodded. Ren took a deep breath, held up both medallions, and began to sing. The song that emerged from Ren wasn't in any human language or Stellaris frequency. It was something new, born from the intersection of both heritages. As his voice rose, the medallions resonated, creating harmonics that rippled through the quantum fabric itself. Nexus faltered, its multiple forms wavering. What is this? Music, Ren said between verses, continuing to weave the melody. Humans discovered patterns in sound waves thousands of years before we understood quantum physics. We called it harmony. The song grew stronger, each note pulling at different quantum threads. Where before Ren had tried to force reality to change, now he was asking it to dance. The medallions pulsed in sync with his voice, one glowing with Stellaris energy, the other resonating with human warmth. Now! Ren shouted to Vaxen. His father dropped his quantum defenses completely, making himself vulnerable. But in that moment of trust, Ren's song reached its crescendo. The quantum fabric responded not to force or will, but to harmony. Reality rippled outward from Ren in concentric waves of probability. Each wave carried his song, creating a pattern that even Nexus's multiple forms couldn't escape. The shadowbound commander tried to shift between states, but found each reality singing the same song. Impossible, Nexus snarled, its forms beginning to synchronize against their will. Quantum states can't be harmonized. Ren continued singing, understanding flooding through him. That's where you're wrong. Everything in the universe vibrates. Everything has a frequency. even probability itself. The medallion's light grew blinding as Ren wove Stellaris power with human creativity. His mother had understood this, he realized. She hadn't just studied ancient civilizations, she had discovered how they used music to manipulate quantum reality. Vaxen watched in awe as his son conducted reality like an orchestra. The ancient texts, he whispered. They spoke of quantum harmonics, but we thought they were metaphors. Nexus screamed as its multiple forms were forced into harmony, collapsed into a single state of being. The shadowbound commander's armor cracked, revealing the twisted form beneath, a being so desperate for quantum purity that it had forgotten how to exist in just one reality. You're breaking fundamental laws, Nexus gasped, struggling against the harmonics. Reality will tear itself apart. No, Ren said, his voice firm even as he maintained the song. I'm not breaking laws, I'm writing new ones. Music isn't about control or purity. It's about finding harmony in chaos. The ship shuddered violently, reminding them of their limited time. Vaxen checked a nearby console, his expression grim. The quantum core is reaching critical levels. Other shadowbound ships are still approaching. We need to move. Ren nodded, but didn't stop singing. Instead, he changed the melody, weaving in new patterns. Reality shifted around them, creating a clear path to the core chamber. But he could feel the strain now, maintaining such complex quantum harmonics was draining him rapidly. You think you've won? Nexus laughed, though its form remained bound by Ren's song. Even if you escape, we will hunt you. The hybrid abomination who dares to rewrite quantum law itself. The entire shadowbound fleet will. Will what? Vaxen interrupted, his voice cold. Continue to pursue your obsession with purity until you fade into quantum noise? Look at yourself, Nexus. Look what your fear of change has turned you into. Ren's song faltered slightly as fatigue set in. The medallions felt heavy around his neck, their power demanding more energy than he could safely give. But he couldn't stop, not when they were so close. Dad, he managed between verses, I can't maintain this much longer. The harmonics are too complex. Vaxen placed a hand on his son's shoulder, and Ren felt new strength flow into him. Then simplify. Your mother always said the most beautiful songs were often the simplest. Understanding clicked into place. Ren stripped away the complicated harmonics, reducing his song to its most basic elements. The quantum fabric responded, becoming more stable rather than less. The core chamber is just ahead, Vaxen said, guiding him forward while he maintained the simplified quantum harmony. Once we reach it, we can use its power to amplify your harmonics, create a quantum tunnel back to safe space. Behind them, Nexus struggled against its bonds, but the simple song held stronger than any complex manipulation could have. Sometimes, Ren realized, the most powerful forces were the most fundamental ones. They reached the core chamber doors, but Ren's strength was fading fast. The twin medallions grew heavier with each note, and dark spots danced at the edges of his vision. He could feel reality trying to snap back, to break free of his musical constraints. I can't. He gasped, his knees buckling. I can't hold it. Vaxen caught him before he could fall, supporting his weight. Yes, you can. You are your mother's son, stubborn, creative, unwilling to accept impossible odds. And you are my son, heir to the power of the Stellaris, but free from our rigid thinking. Now, one last verse. Make it count. Ren drew in a deep breath, feeling the dual heritage flowing through his veins. Human and Stellaris. Science and art. Physics and music. The medallions pulsed one final time as he sang the simplest melody he knew, a lullaby his foster mother used to sing when he had nightmares. Reality shifted one last time, the core chamber doors dissolving into quantum probability. Beyond them, the quantum core pulsed with raw power, waiting to amplify Ren's harmonics into something that could save them all. Or destroy everything, if he got it wrong? The quantum core pulsed before them like a living heart, its energy swirling in patterns that made Ren's medallions hum with sympathetic resonance. The chamber itself was massive, stretching up into darkness, with the core suspended in its center like a star about to go supernova. The containment field is failing, Vaxon said, rushing to the control interfaces. Without proper harmonics, the quantum energy will cascade out of control, taking half the solar system with it. Ren staggered to the center platform, still maintaining his simple melody. Behind them, he could hear Nexus and other shadowbound forces approaching, their twisted quantum signatures creating dissonance in his song. What do we need to do? Ren asked, his voice hoarse from continuous singing. The core needs to be stabilized before we can use it to escape, Vaxon explained, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. But the Shadowbound's attack has corrupted its basic frequency. It's trying to exist in too many states at once. Ren looked up at the swirling energy, feeling its chaotic resonance. The medallions around his neck pulsed faster, almost painfully. Then he understood. It's like an instrument that's out of tune, he said. We need to give it a reference note, a base frequency to build harmony around. Vaxon's eyes widened. Yes, yes. The ancient Stellaris used quantum harmonics to build their first cores, but we forgot the music, focused only on the mathematics. The chamber doors exploded inward. Nexus entered, followed by a squad of shadowbound soldiers, their forms flickering between realities. Step away from the core, Nexus commanded, its voice distorting as it fought against Ren's harmonic constraints. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, Ren said, holding up both medallions, I think I finally do. He began to sing again, but this time it wasn't a lullaby or a complex harmony. It was a single, pure note, the resonant frequency of the medallions themselves. The quantum core responded immediately, its chaotic energy patterns beginning to synchronize. The core frequency is stabilizing, Vaxon reported, wonder in his voice. How did you know? Mom's message said the medallions were a paired set, Ren explained between sustained notes. One Stellaris, one human. Together, they're in perfect harmony, the exact frequency the core was originally built to maintain. Nexus raised its quantum weapon, but the harmonics were affecting it too. In the presence of such pure resonance, its multiple forms began to collapse again. You'll destroy everything we've built. Our perfect quantum control was never meant to be about control, Ren countered, his voice growing stronger as the core's energy flowed through him. The quantum fabric isn't something to be controlled or purified. It's a song that's been playing since the beginning of the universe. We just needed to learn how to listen. The core's light changed from chaotic swirls to steady pulses, matching the rhythm of Ren's song. The medallions lifted of their own accord, floating in front of him as their energy merged with the core's. Quantum tunnel forming, Vaxon announced. But the shadowbound fleet is still out there. Even if we escape, they'll follow. Ren looked at the approaching shadowbound soldiers, at Nexus's twisted form, and made a decision. Then let's give them a choice. He changed his note slightly, adding harmonics that spread through the quantum fabric like ripples in a pond. The core amplified his song, sending it out through the ship, through space itself. Wherever it touched the shadowbound, their unstable quantum states began to resonate with it. What are you doing to us? Nexus gasped, its form shifting between solid and ethereal. Offering harmony, Ren said simply. You've spent so long trying to exist in multiple states that you've forgotten how to be whole. This song, it's a way back. A chance to remember who you were before the obsession with purity. The effect spread through the shadowbound forces. Some fought against it, their forms dissolving into quantum static. But others, including some of Nexus's squad, began to stabilize. Their twisted armor fell away, revealing the Stellaris they had once been. Impossible, Nexus snarled, but there was uncertainty in its voice. We cannot. I cannot. You can, Ren insisted, maintaining the harmony. The universe isn't meant to be pure or perfect. It's meant to be alive, growing, changing. That's what my parents discovered. Why they knew someone like me needed to exist. The quantum tunnel solidified behind them, a passage to safety through folded space-time. But Ren didn't move toward it yet. Instead, he held out his hand to Nexus. Come with us, he offered. Let go of the obsession with quantum purity. Help us build something new, a harmony between all states of being. For a moment, just a moment, Nexus's form stabilized. Ren saw the being it had once been, before fear and obsession had twisted it. But then its quantum signature fractured again, splitting into countless possibilities. Never, it hissed, raising its weapon. Better to exist in infinite states than submit to your false harmony. Dad, Ren called out, not taking his eyes off Nexus. Time to go. Vaxen activated the final sequence. The quantum core's energy surged, amplifying Ren's harmonics to their peak. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. This isn't over, Nexus warned as Ren and Vaxen backed toward the tunnel. There will always be those who seek purity over harmony. I know, Ren replied, the medallions returning to his neck as he prepared to step through. But now there will always be a song to guide them home. The quantum tunnel enveloped them just as Nexus fired. Space and time folded around them like origami, carrying them away from the ship, away from the shadowbound. Through it all, Ren maintained his harmony, letting it ripple out through the quantum fabric. As they emerged in safe space, Ren finally let the song fade. He was exhausted, drained in ways he never knew possible, but also filled with a sense of purpose he'd never had before. Where do we go now? He asked his father as they watched the quantum tunnel collapse behind them. Vaxen smiled, a real smile this time. Wherever the harmony leads us. Your mother would have said that's the best kind of adventure. Ren touched the medallions, feeling their warm pulse against his skin. He was no longer just a boy who stared at the stars, dreaming of belonging. He was no longer just a hybrid caught between two worlds. He was a bridge, a singer of quantum songs, a writer of new harmonies. And somewhere out in the vast symphony of space, other songs were waiting to be sung.